taking time for your health. The African American Wellness Watch. Trusted information for us, by us. Dr. Mike LeNoir and other experts from around the country and around the world have the latest on how you and your family can get healthy and stay well. It's time for the African American Wellness Watch. Welcome to the Wellness Watch. I'm your moderator, George Strait. Today's show is about vaccinations, vaccines. We all know their value, right? Or do we? From flu shots to COVID, African Americans get fewer shots. Therefore, we get more of the diseases that vaccinations prevent. This is especially true for children. A lot of folks have talked an awful lot of smack recently about vaccinations and vaccines. But is any of it true? Well, we've got the experts to address all of the issues regarding vaccines and vaccinations. Our host, Dr. Mike LeNoir, who through 40 years of practice has probably given out thousands of shots and vaccinations, and also Jennifer King from the Council of Negro Women, who will address a particular issue about vaccinations. And not only that, but she's developed a book. She and the rest of the folks on the Council of Negro Women have developed a book that's especially good for children in helping them deal with shots and getting vaccinations in general. Dr. Mike, before we get started on all sort of the science about vaccinations and how they work and all the rest, in your 40 years of practice, let's talk a little bit about the diseases that you don't see anymore just because of the effectiveness of vaccinations.
Well, that's a very good point, George, because in the early days, I would see 40, 50, 60 patients a day. And most of them had the following problems: otitis media, pneumonia, meningitis, and other forms of impetigo, diarrhea, all kinds of infectious problems that would fill the office. And there was very little we could do because these, like the more familiar COVID virus to people, were problems that did not have antibiotic solutions, many of them. And so consequently, now that we've had these vaccines, if we see 20, 25 patients a day, that's a lot. Most of them are for well child visits, not for visits of infection.
So you've got a situation like mumps. Kids don't get mumps anymore. They don't get measles really anymore. Rubella, and I mean, so we've got all of these diseases that we experience as children, and also we've experienced professionally, that just aren't around anymore.
No, that's true. I haven't seen a case of chickenpox or measles or mumps or meningitis or really pneumonia in a child in the last 3 years. Pneumonia may be so because so much of that can be bacterial, but the numbers are significantly different as a result of these vaccines.
So I guess the bottom line is that these things work.
Oh, there's no question they work. I mean, they're not 100%. No, nothing is 100% effective. So occasionally you'll see epidemics around the country, even in vaccinated children, because a certain percentage of those children are not responsive to the vaccine. But when you talk about 85%, 90%, 95%, you're talking a tremendous number of children who are spared the indignity and the danger of some of these very, very serious viral diseases.
And because they work, so many school systems nationwide require kids to have these kinds of shots before they even get into school.
Yeah, there's no question about that either, because schools are paid based on attendance, and they are motivated definitely to have children not only safe from infections, but also they're dedicated to getting children to school. And so in the state of California, most of these vaccinations for children are mandated. And except for the COVID vaccine, we have had very little controversy since those mandates were put in place.
So before we get to some of the myths and some of the questions about vaccines, why don't you tell us a little bit about actually how they work?
All right, let's let someone else tell you. Let's look at a short video on how vaccines do work. George, that's a very simplistic explanation,
Mhm.
but it certainly gives you a sense of how they work. And for people who are more interested in a deeper scientific delve into vaccinations, they can go to our website at aawellnessproject.org. One of the major issues that we are dealing with is the number of African American children who are not vaccinated. If you look at statistics in every state, African Americans lag behind other Americans in vaccinating their children. I think that there are a number of reasons for this, and certainly those reasons were highlighted by the COVID epidemic. But there are a number of myths around vaccines that I think we should take on right now so that people may have a bit better perspective on what I feel about vaccines. And but I have to say before this, I'm a big fan.
But more than just being a big fan, you're a scientist, and you've studied how these things work, why they're effective. So it's not a matter of ideology with you. It's really a matter of science and experience. So let's get into some of these myths. So one of the claims that especially vaccine haters claim is that vaccinations cause autism in children.
Oh, there's no question that that's one of the things that you see occasionally on the internet. But we know now from good science that vaccinations do not cause autism and also do not cause sudden infant death in children. As a side, there's an anecdote. The scientists who published this data and had it go around the world as science was subsequently found to be fraudulent, kicked out of scientific societies and out of medicine altogether. And there have been many, many studies subsequent to that all across the world. And these vaccines don't cause any of the two diseases we described, autism or sudden infant death.
So another of the claims from vaccine haters is that the vaccines actually cause the disease that they're designed to prevent.
No, these are attenuated vaccines. They have no capacity to cause disease. There's never been a case of that, where a vaccine that we give routinely to children caused the disease for which it was intended to protect that child.
What about this whole idea of herd immunity, which you can get into and you can explain? But some folks say, well, look, why should I give these shots to my children since everybody else is already vaccinated? Then I can take advantage of that and not have to give my child the kinds of vaccinations that other children have.
Freeloaders, George. Freeloaders riding along on the wave of responsible parents. No, there's no question that there is something called herd immunity. But every year we see around the country epidemics, not always or even most of the time caused because people are resistant to the vaccine, but just because people are simply not vaccinated. And one of the reasons you want to be vaccinated and you don't want to get these diseases, these are dangerous diseases. And so consequently, even though you may be in a herd here in California, you go visit your relatives in other states where vaccines are not given as frequently, then you can be very likely to come up with one of these diseases. We just don't remember. I remember polio paralyzing children. I remember measles keeping children out of school for weeks. Mumps, rubella, hepatitis A, B, meningococcal. We've seen all of these diseases. So if you want to take a chance on the herd, then I think you're risking some of the problems. You're encouraging some of the problems that come when you get these diseases.
And is that a reason why immunization should be given to infants and not wait?
Well, there are a couple of reasons they're given to infants. One is because they're more susceptible to the diseases themselves. And secondly, the other reason to give to infants at that age is that give them in groups is because then they won't have to come back so often. But the big reason is that this is the era and age in which most of these vaccines have their most lethal impact. And so giving them now gives them protection, and giving them in groups shows that the evidence shows that there's no risk to giving several immunizations together, and it prevents several shot visits. And shots, George, you hear a lot of people who are resistant to getting immunizations. Now, you know, a lot of those people, George, are just afraid of shots. And certainly children are afraid of shots, which kind of leads us into our next segment of our discussion, where the National Council of Negro Women here in Hayward, California, saw this as a problem. Thought that as through their experience, that their children were not adequately prepared to get the shots. That therefore some resistance that was unnecessary when and if those vaccination issues around shots were explained. They got together and they published a coloring book called Queenie Gets Her Shots. And I think it's a tremendous book. We've used it in our practice. We actually can't keep the book in stock. Now, we still got some children, man, who read that book and it meant nothing to them. And when they get in, they fight like ninjas to keep. I didn't realize until I became a pediatrician how many positions little children can get into. But for many, many of the children who had the opportunity to see this book and to utilize it, it has a calming effect, and it makes our job a lot easier. Let's hear from Ms. King about the book, why she wrote it, what it contains, and maybe where people can get it.
Some 39 years ago, I was a brand new parent, and I was so blessed to have you as my pediatrician. But I really recall the very first time I had to bring my daughter into your office for her first vaccine. And I'm a little ashamed to admit it, but Dr. LeNoir, I remember putting my baby in the arms of your nurse and leaving the room. I was terrified of vaccinations, and the idea of even watching her as a baby having to get a shot terrified me. So I'm 100% sure my fear of getting shots, I passed it on to my daughter.
So what we're dealing with here really is not just a child issue, but a parent issue around getting shots. And, you know, that I think that's something that was missed in a lot of the discussion about why African Americans lag behind in some categories. Although I think as we went further along, I think we really pretty much caught up. All right. So once you got a charge, once you saw this was the one of the issues for the National Association of National Council of Negro Women, how did you decide how to get involved?
Well, that I was going to be involved was a given. But what happened was there was an opportunity for us to take advantage of a grant. And what the grant asked is that we try to find a different way of approaching vaccinations within the African American, within the communities of color here in the Bay Area. And because I have a love of writing, we saw that as a perfect opportunity to give me an opportunity to write. And because our section of NCNW had a wonderful relationship with a local illustrator, we put those two things together, and then we thought, what would be the way we could reach children? What would be the way we can reach parents? And the light went on, and we thought a coloring book. And we thought a coloring book that could tell a story.
And so you definitely put together a tremendous project. The book itself is called Queenie Gets Her Shots. We'll have a shot here on the screen. And it's a very interesting book. I'm pleased to be at least mentioned in this book because that gives me, I think, as far as I know, my own literary legacy. Tell us how you decided to construct the story and why.
So, again, I was recalling what I had gone through with my daughter. And I remember when Lauren, it was time to start school, and, you know, we'd have this big fight. We'd have to go see Dr. LeNoir. Do I have to get shots? And there was all this tension in the house about her having to get her shots. So I thought, well, let's tell Lauren's story, but I won't use Lauren's name. And just approaching and recognizing that for some children, there is a fear of getting shots. And then the idea came to the creative team, that one of the best ways children learn is not only through storytelling, but when they hear it, Dr. LeNoir, from their friends, as opposed to hearing it from mom or dad, a teacher or a family member. But things really stick with children when they hear it from a friend or when they hear it from another child. In this case with Queenie, her sibling brother. So the story for this coloring book, Queenie goes to see her doctor, and the outcome is not good. She's terrified of getting the shots. And when she shares her reluctance with her friend Isabel and with her brother Miles, both of them really lean in and reassure Queenie that getting her vaccinations is okay. And they do this by telling her the story of the various involvement African Americans have had in the history of vaccines and inoculations in the United States throughout history.
What has been the response to your book?
It has been wonderful, Dr. LeNoir. The children love it. We've had wonderful responses from teachers. We've had actually one of our affiliate organizations, I'm still not sure how they got a hold of the book, but back in Newark, New Jersey, they contacted us. They loved it. Our Northern California regions of NCNW, and there are 10 sections throughout Northern California. Our sisters from Sacramento have contacted us. Our sisters in Fairfield have contacted us. San Francisco. It's truly been wonderful. We've heard from Sunday school teachers who shared the coloring book with the children in their Sunday school classes. So we've just been delighted. And to give you an idea of how well Queenie did, is the initial printing was for 2,500 copies. And Dr. LeNoir, within a 3-week period, we were down 2485. So we were able to get rid of all except 15 copies in a 2 to 3 week period.
Now, we're talking not just to people here in the Bay Area, but we're also talking to a national audience through our relationship with blackdoctor.org. If they're interested in the book or they're interested in getting a copy, what can they do? Where can they go? And how is it being distributed?
So the book is absolutely free. It's not for sale because this is what we're doing for our community. So I would think the best way for them to contact us would be through our website, and that's eohncnw.org. And that stands for East Oakland Hayward NCNW. That's once again eohncnw.org. And just drop me a line and I'll get right back in touch with them.
George, that's a tremendous contribution to the work pediatricians have to do. I was not aware of another book. I'm sure there are others, but this is a book focused on Black children of color. It focuses on why we give shots as well as what the process is like. And I think it's a tremendous asset to me in my practice and will be to parents who are able to get a copy.
There's absolutely no question how terrific that book is and how it's actually changed the lives of so many parents and children. And remember, you can also get a copy of that book by coming to our website. Also, answer any more questions that you've got about vaccinations. That's aawellnessproject.org, aawellnessproject.org. Dr. Mike, let's close it.
To sum it up, George, once again, I want people to get this picture of what I saw when I first went into practice and what I see now. All of it attributable to the increase in the number of vaccinated children. And we no longer see these death door kinds of situations walk in our office with nearly the frequency as we did before these vaccines. These vaccines are proven to be safe. They don't cause autism. They don't cause sudden infant death. And it's not good enough for you to wait around and have your children get these diseases. either because you're not vaccinated in a community where these diseases are still present, or you're waiting for the herd to freeload to protect you. So this concludes our program, but I always want to remind people, and vaccines is a part of this. Health is your biggest asset, so protect it.
Pretty fucking good.
I think it's okay.
That's good, man.
Let me stop the recording. This program was sponsored by an educational grant